So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. So let's build up a little bit to that initial look at Revelation. We've seen that the four were there from the beginning of the Bible to the end. And that with the end, those four were climaxed in the holy city. That holy city with its four sides, presented really as the highest standpoint in the Bible, the acme of the Bible. And so that theme of Word, Christ, Christianity, science is just repeated again and again and again. It is a pattern that is a constant theme. But as I've already indicated to you this morning, that theme was not fully expounded. It was only a sort of plain statement of the Word, Christ, Christianity, and science. It wasn't fully scientifically expounded in its self-reflection. Only at the end of Revelation, where we see that four-sided city as having in each side 3 doors, do we get an indication of how that fullness will be seen. Because each of those 3 doors opens to each of the other 3 sides, thus indicating to us that there is a reflection, that the Word can look at the Christ, it can look at Christianity, it can look at science. That the Christ is not only the Christ, but that it reflects the Word, reflects Christianity, reflects science. That Christianity is Christianity, but it also reflects the Word, the Christ, and science. And so science reflects Word, Christ, and Christianity, as well as being itself. So that the importance of those doors are to show us that the full picture is a 4x4 picture. This is the acme of the science in the Bible. It is the vision of St. John that those 4 refer to themselves, bringing out again that feedback principle, that self-referral principle in its fullest extent, as though to show that there is nothing operating but that infinite one being, and that as that infinite one operates in its wholeness and fullness, that it must be seen as a 4x4. But whenever John presents the 4 in Revelation, as I mentioned earlier, he presents it from the point of view only of the Word and the Christ. So he presents the 4, and at the end he indicates to the 4x4, but he presents the whole picture from the standpoint of the Word and the Christ. That's the main accent. And only when he prophesies of the future and speaks of the future would he then show that there is Christianity and science. But he will speak about Christianity and science from the point of view of the Word and the Christ. Is that clear? It's a little tricky, isn't it? And we just have to recall that still the main atmosphere was the Word and the Christ, that there had only been really the first touch of Christianity, the opening up of the idea of Christianity, that idea is what had to be further developed, that is what was to come, the new and higher vision of what Christianity was, and that beyond that would come science. So that in looking ahead, just as if we would look ahead now, as we look ahead from where we are, don't we? We may look ahead, but we look ahead from whatever standpoint of consciousness we are in. So what, if we just take the big picture of it, what is the relationship? What are we going to see in Revelation as the relationship that the textbook has to that presentation of Revelation? We're going to hear that John is continually talking about the book. The book. You recall that? It's opening the book. Talking about opening the book. First there is a book, then the book has to be opened, that there are seals on the book. It is sealed within and without with 7 seals. Who is going to open the book? Then only the Lamb can open the book. Then we have the unsealing of the book. The book is open. Then another mighty angel comes down and he has in his hand an open book. A book, book, book. And Mrs. Eddy picks up that angel, picks up the story with that angel with the little book open in his hand and begins to tell us the story of divine science. So it is all about the book, but at the beginning it is about the book and about the 24 elders. So the story of the book evolves through Revelation, but it begins with these 24 elders before the throne, with the 4 beasts with the 6 wings, another 24, indicating what? Indicating not yet what we know as the textbook, but what Mrs. Eddy presented as the science of man, her first book. Isn't that terrific? That she presented the science of man. Are you familiar with that science of man? It's recapitulation, isn't it? It's that, the substance of which became the chapter recapitulation, stating the whole problem, what is God? That's how it began. What is God? And so those are our elders, those 24 questions and answers in recapitulation, 6 questions and answers from the standpoint of the Word, 6 questions and answers from the standpoint of the Christ, 6 from the standpoint of Christianity, and 6 from the standpoint of science. So it's not a 666 as the false sense of man, but a 6666. And those four, the 4 of the Word, Christ, Christianity, and science in recapitulation are presented from the point of view of the Word, Christ, and Christianity. They are not presented from the standpoint of science. So we get a 4 by 3. A 4 by 3 times 2, because it is a 4 by 3, first on the level of Christian Science and then on the level of absolute Christian Science, so that it is a structure that brings out 24. 4 by 3 by 2 is 24 different points, different questions and answers. So that we get the first fulfillment of that prophecy in John, that there will be a higher sense, a scientific sense really, of Christianity. That which is to come was already fulfilled when Mrs. Eddy wrote her first book entitled The Science of Man. So we see the 4 sides of the city operating as Christianity. She gave to the world the science of Christianity. But today that is not our focus of attention. It is rather what the Revelator saw at the end of the revelation. That was at the beginning of the revelation. And at the end was the holy city, the 4, and the fact that each of those 4 can be seen from every side, not just 3 sides, but from 4 sides. You hear the difference. One is a 4 by 3, the other is a 4 by 4. And Mrs. Eddy ends her textbook with the holy city, with that acme of science, and indicates that 4 by 4 that we have been talking about. She indicates it. She doesn't make it explicit. It is implicate in her chapter. Implicate in her chapter. You see, implicate in that last chapter, we're going to see that when that was decoded, the whole textbook was decoded. When that was decoded, implicate in that chapter were found the essential categories that now have crystallized into what we see as the model of being. How was that done? That was the work of John Dorley. He was the one who could see what Mrs. Eddy was indicating. And so he showed the implications of what she meant in those final pages of the Revelation. He was able to see that there was a difference between the city of our God and the city foursquare, that the city foursquare had those doors that opened within and without, and that those doors were indicating both the objective and the subjective approach. That if we have the city foursquare, that can be translated to the city of our God. And so he began to elaborate that and to realize that the full picture was a 4 by 4. The moment he saw that 4 by 4, the textbook began to be decoded. The structure of the textbook began to be decoded. The platform was seen to be a 4 by 4 layout. So we had the recapitulation being decoded, the platform being decoded, those 2 great teachings of class instruction, of primary and normal class instruction. And with the decoding of the platform, the 24, then gave way to the 32, where you have a 2 times 16. You have the 16, a 4 by 4, from 2 standpoints, 2 levels, really, of divine science and absolute Christian science. And after that, the whole textbook itself was seen to be a 4 by 4 layout, so that the textbook was seen to be that city 4 square. Isn't that a marvelous story? So that through John Dorley's terrific spiritual sense, his insight into that last chapter in the textbook, the whole thing was decoded. And we were able to see what the fulfillment of Revelation is as that 4 by 4 layout of the Christian Science textbook. You can hear already that the model of being and its constituents is implicated in the textbook. It is implicit in the textbook. On the other hand, the textbook is implicated structurally in the model of being. You know, I can only just say some of these things that would perhaps take several hours to talk about and to deliberate over and to sit. We really should sit around a fireplace or something and have that model of being in our hands and see now just where does that textbook come in? Where is the main focus? What's the point of intersection? What's being reflected here? What do we have when we look at one chapter? And we should be able to become so flexible with that model of being that we would be able to trace with the categories, through the categories, and see just what categories are being reflected at any given point in the whole system. In that textbook, perhaps to see, now where does prayer, what is prayer? Where is the textbook per se? And we would see that that's in the science vertical. And then how do we find prayer? What is prayer? Well, that science vertical must be reflecting the Word. And the Word is reflecting the Word. So we have categories, really, in reflection. So that as we move really into the 7,000-year period and into the consciousness of these categories, the whole substance of a chapter like prayer will become a structure to us, a structure of category. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that has to come, and I see it has to come really naturally and not intellectually. It can't be wrangling over, well, no, I think it's this way, and, well, what about this? It has to come quietly, peacefully, lovingly, as one loves these things and loves the fact that something new is coming.